I'm being marginalized?
I did.
It was in the packet.
Crazy busy.
Right over there.
We got one, but it didn't go to everybody.
Got it.
And not a, you know.
No, I've been having issues with my email, which is why I was asking.
Sounds convenient.
They keep on bouncing back.
Probably a virus. Not indeed possible.
Lawrence.
Practically paisan. No Argentinian.
Hanging on that.
So some of this you can't forget it.
I know.
I hear you.
I think you're taking notes tonight. You got your little we could just ask them and interpret one. That's what we're
I'll take some, please.
Everyone ready here now? All right, we'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for March 2nd, 2015. Can we have a roll call, please? I'm sorry.
Wait. Commissioner Bowman?
Here.
Commissioner Kalinowski?
Here.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
Here.
Commissioner Bone?
Here.
Commissioner Hecker?
Here.
I'm not used to that. I'm all out of sorts now.
First item is a motion to approve the minutes of the February 2nd, 2015 Public Works Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any corrections or additions from the committee or any other commissioners here? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Moving on to the scheduled agenda, PW1. This is 2015 HUD program. East Avenue, Tennis Avenue, North Hills Avenue, storm sewer projects. This is a motion to approve and enter into contract with N. Abenizio Contractors, Inc. for the 2015 HUD program, East Avenue, Tennis Avenue, North Hills Avenue, storm sewer projects in the amount of $354,385, subject to HUD's full execution of the authority to use grant funds, HUD Form 7015.16, to be funded from HUD, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any comment from the committee? Any comment from other commissioners present? Any comment from staff or the public? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. PW2. This is resolution number 15-016. Execute a maintenance and contribution agreement with PennDOT for ornamental street lighting and decorative crosswalks at Noble 611 Bridge. This is a motion to approve resolution number 15-016, authorizing the appropriate township officials execute a maintenance and contribution agreement with PennDOT for ornamental street lighting and decorative crosswalks as part of the Noble Bridge replacement project, and to reserve $115,000 from fund balance to cover the associated cost. And I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any comment from committee? Yes, Commissioner Hacker.
Looking through the information, the estimates on the cost dated back to 2010. Is this 115 a revised, updated estimated cost, or are we just projecting some inflationary?
PennDOT took the actual estimates from 2010 and incorporated those numbers for the sidewalks into the agreement.
Oh, okay.
What we try to use is updated figures for the ornamental lighting. So we do have current figures for the ornamental lighting, but PennDOT seems happy with those figures for the sidewalks, so we include those in the agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other committee? Any other commissioners? Anyone from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I did see the cost of the crosswalks. But I did not see the full cost. I only saw $85,000 that the township had to pay for the ornamental lighting. What was the full cost of the lighting?
Maybe $30,000?
How much?
$30,000?
$30,000, and Abington's share of the $30,000 is $85,000. The full, so the
No, the total cost is $115,000, $85 for sidewalks, $30 for the streetlights.
okay. So, all right. So you're saying the 80. I misunderstood that then. When I read it, and I don't have all those papers in front of me, it was pretty voluminous. I thought that the portion of the lighting that Abington had to pay was $85,000. That's not correct.
That's correct. That is not correct. The township assumed responsibility for the ornamental lighting and the decorative sidewalks as part of this project. This was approved by the board in concept back in 2010. PennDOT just received funding, I guess, in the 2013 transportation bill, and they're prepared to move forward at this time.
Okay, so Abington is paying for the total crosswalks.
And decorative lighting.
Okay, all right. I'll have to go back and look at that, and I'll ask you in an email if I still have it wrong. The other thing I didn't understand was that apparently did not go out to bid. Why did that not go out to bid?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
There was a sentence in there that said it didn't go out to bid on page 27, I think. You had a letter from a Rudolph Clark representative that said, since this didn't go out to bid,
This dates back to Mount Ponce, right?
since it didn't go out
I'm
to
not
bid,
clear what the speaker is
political.
referring to, but I'd be happy to discuss it with Tamar if she wants to call my office and reference the documents. I'd be happy to discuss it in greater detail at that time.
Did that work go out to bid since it was over $25,000?
Manager LaFever, can I ask a question, maybe to clear things up? We're reserving this money for when the actual bridge is reconstructed, that PennDOT knows that we have reserved the cost of the requested improvements to the bridge project that the township has asked for, which would be decorative walkways, sidewalks, and the decorative lighting. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is a PennDOT project. PennDOT, as a normal course of business, does not put in ornamental lighting or decorative sidewalks. The township has agreed to upgrade the facility and incur those additional costs.
And at this point, this project has not bid out because it's not going to happen for another year, 2 years, I forget what the schedule is, but this is us just reserving the money to show that we have a commitment to the things that we've asked for, and the bid process hasn't been started or contemplated yet because the project hasn't even been scheduled. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Can I also ask a quick clarification? When this is bid out, obviously PennDOT is going to bid for their own contractor to actually do the bridge project. Would this fall under those auspices, or would we somehow bid out just these aspects separately?
This will be part of the PennDOT bid package.
Thank you.
So then I guess I don't understand the comment made by, I think it was Georgianne Fusco from Rudolph Clark, who said that since this project is not being bid out, political contribution statements needed to be rendered. That didn't seem to indicate the same understanding of why it wasn't getting bid out. Did you look on page 27? You have page 27 there?
No, I don't have that information in front of me, but again, I'd be happy to discuss it with the speaker anytime tomorrow if she'd give my office a call.
All right. Thank you. And I do just want to say that, you know, the improvements to these areas are the things that I did bring up at the zoning rewrites meeting as the costs to residents that are not seen when we have development. So at this Bader Road, New York Road intersection that we just had all the PennDOT work, street work at, we now also have, and this was approved way in advance, we have crosswalks, decorative lighting, and so on. Those costs are not added in when you give an impact statement to the township and say how much money everybody's going to get, and wow, this is really good for the township. Okay, and somehow those costs need to be added in. The impact statements need to actually include the whole impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, over to PW3. This is a reallocation of sewer capital and sewer operations budget items. This is a motion to approve the reallocation of remaining balances of these previously budgeted capital expense items, which have been completed, to fully fund the replacement of the existing Camel Flush truck. The existing capital expense items total $9,576.55, and I so move.
Second.
Any comment from staff on this, Mr.?
The current price that we're working on for the truck, the January increase is the initial $240,000 was quoted back in August, and we just didn't estimate enough of an increase in there, so we need a little bit more money right now to purchase the truck. So we, in concert with the finance department, we're closing out some of the smaller accounts, that projects that go back to 2006, and we're just closing out all those monies and just using them for the truck.
Thank you. Any comment from the committee? Other present commissioners? Public? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And finally, PW4. This is a bid award for 2015-16 consortium sign bid. This is a motion to accept the lowest responsible bids and enter into contracts with the following companies for the purchase of materials as shown, as stated in the printed agenda. The companies are listed, and our attorney tells us that it can be stated in that fashion without being read entirely, and I'm comfortable in doing so. So, as stated in the printed agenda, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any comment from the committee? Any other commissioners? The public? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And finally, that's our last printed agenda, so we would accept comments from the public on public works items at this time.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. And I would like to say we had the discussion a time or two ago with Mr. Wrigley and Mr. Powers about the, which streets were plugged up, which sewer vents were plugged up. The plugged up sewer vents, the sewer is intended to work in that fashion, which we've discussed before, that the gases are supposed to vent out. When they don't vent out, they build up in a different manner than they were intended to, the way the system was built. What was a concern to me is, even though I had emailed and looked for those answers before the meeting, when we came to the meeting, Mr. Wrigley did not even know that there were plugs in the sewer. So that's a concern to me. So I wrote after the meeting, and I said, I think that's a concern. Our engineer obviously knows their plugs. Some of the commissioners know. Maybe all of them don't. But it's something that people should know. And particularly, I said that we had people that were complaining of sewer gas smells. And for a time, our township channel aired the fact that sewer gases could gather, and they could even be explosive, and they were obviously not good to be breathing. If you had leaks in your vents, because if they didn't vent out the sewer vents, they might be forced back up to vent through your houses, which Mr. Michelot explained to me that they have a little J, and they're not supposed to do that. And most things, sewers aren't supposed to back up either. But under great pressure, like in a storm, they do those things. We all know that. Sewers back up into people's homes, and lots of people in Abington know that. So what we need to do is first, I would like to see some responsiveness there, okay? Secondly, the responsiveness would be to, when we had that discussion, and I emailed back to Mr. Wrigley, who could, if it was supposed to go to the township manager, he can send it to the township manager, who can approve his every response. That's fine. But the point is that somewhere the residents should get an answer that, yes, we acknowledge this might be an issue, or no, we don't think it's an issue at all. But somewhere the residents should get an answer. It's a concern about health and safety. And so that's the point that I want to bring up. So I would like to see a change in that attitude, which is what brings the tone and the temper to this discussion, rather than the polite discussion that you would like to have. And in addition, I wanted to say, too, the Public Works Department, I don't think would have very much trouble at all making parking with wood chips even, and a sign, a small sign and wood chips. Commissioner Klein said at Jackson Park there was a sign that told everybody where to go. There's not. I took pictures of Jackson Park right after the meeting, and there is no sign that tells you that, yes, this is parking for Jackson Park. There's room for like one car, but you can't tell if it's a private lane or if it's part of the park. And there's no place in front of the park that tells you that the entrance to the park is around. So if Jackson Park's not meant to be a private park, please accommodate people to be able to pull off there and know where they can park and access that park. And that's off Meadowbrook Road that I'm talking about. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say in Public Works was, something that I will also, this is one more thing, okay? And again, you know what, I'm going to ask that behind the scenes, and I'll bring it here if I don't get an answer behind the scenes. But what I bring here often comes here with a little bit more of an attitude because of what happened behind the scenes. And I'd like to see that change. Thank you.
Any other comment from the public? Hearing none. Meeting's adjourned.
Tourism. I dropped my season tickets this year.
No incentive to keep them.
Call to order the Code Enforcement and Land Development Committee meeting for March 2nd, 2015. And may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sanchez?
Here.
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 And Commissioner Gillespie is excused for this evening. First, I'll start with a motion to approve the minutes of the February 2nd, 2014 Code Enforcement and Land Development Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. Tonight we have CE1. This is subdivision SD 1501, James Sheridan, 1777 Kimball Avenue. This is a motion to approve the subdivision and land development application of James Sheridan, applicant for the property located at 1777 Kimball Avenue. The applicant seeks approval to subdivide the property into 3 lots. Lot number 1 will contain the existing single-family dwelling and consist of 22,640 square feet with frontage on Kimball Avenue. Lots number 2 and 3 are proposed for development and are plotted at 7,662 square feet each. Both lots 2 and 3 have frontage on Smith Avenue. The properties are zoned in the R4 residential district in Ward number 8 of the Township of Abington, and the motion is subject to conditions and waivers as listed in the agenda, and I so move.
And I'm just going to mention I'm going to recuse myself from voting on this, as I have some business dealings with James Sheridan.
Thank you, Commissioner Markman. So noted. Do we have a second for the motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Matteo, do we have an explanation here, or someone is the applicant's attorney, right? Mr. Cools.
Good evening. My name's Joe Cools. I'm counsel for the property owner. As you've described, what's before you this evening is a 3-lot subdivision. There is an existing home on a property today of slightly less than 1 acre. The proposal is to divide that parcel into 3 lots. The existing home will remain on the one larger lot of slightly over 22,000 square feet. That lot fronts on Kimball Avenue. There will be 2 new lots created which front on Smith, which are very close in size, and they are just over your minimum lot area requirement. The subdivision is a conforming subdivision. It conforms with the requirements of your subdivision and land development ordinance and with the requirements of your zoning ordinance. It was the subject of a zoning hearing board application, and the result of that was that we were found to be in conformance with the then in question zoning requirement. There are a number of waivers that are requested. We've been to your planning commission. We have a recommendation from your planning commission for the grant of those waivers, but for one. There was a question as to street lighting, and I'm glad to go through those with you if you like, but the question as to street lighting, I believe, has been resolved. We met with staff, and I believe the recommendation is to install a street light on an existing pole. I've discussed that with my client, and we are amenable to that solution. So if you'd like me to walk through the letter, I'm glad to do that, but we are requesting the waivers that are in the letter, which I think still includes the waiver for the strict enforcement of the streetlight requirements, with the condition that we'll put in the streetlight, which was discussed.
And staff was satisfied with the streetlight as agreed to, or on the condition. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Myers.
Actually, no questions, just a couple comments. And my comments aren't necessarily pertinent to land development, but I think that to make a record of what has happened, the neighbors have met, and it's only really 3 or 4 neighbors because it is a very narrow dead-end street. Smith Avenue is a very small dead-end street, and these 2 homes will be fronting Smith Avenue. There's parking on one side of the street. That's how small it is. So we've had 2 neighborhood meetings with the developer. I have to say it's a legal plan, and the developer has done everything that I can think of that we've asked them to do. Storm sewers have been put in where there were none, as well as on Windsor Avenue where Smith Avenue attaches. We just discussed the light. Today, Mr. Matteo and Mr. Milcalo and I were on the street to discuss how trash and snow removal will be handled with the addition of these 2 new driveways. And that's being worked out. As I said, storm sewers. The neighbors also asked for a different traffic pattern on Kimball Avenue, which is a one-way street. That is now in the hands of Traffic Manager Freed. I don't know that we're going to be able to accommodate that, but it's being worked on right now. And the other thing that the neighbors asked for was a dead-end street sign, and we can certainly make sure that that happens. I think we've hit just about everything. Again, the developer has really done everything that they're able to do. I have no issue with the developer on this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. Very helpful on all those items that were in the packet. Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, I just had one question on the list of waivers. It says here installation of sidewalks under E, section 14627. It says the applicant has requested a waiver for the installation of sidewalks on Weldon Avenue frontage.
That's a typographical.
Is that supposed to be Kimball Avenue?
I believe it's Kimball, yeah.
And Smith, there's going to be sidewalks because there already are sidewalks?
They exist today.
Okay, I just want to make sure that gets cleared up.
Yeah,
that
thank
should
you.
say Kimball Avenue. Thank you.
So there will be no waiver then for the...
No, there's a waiver for Kimball Avenue, but not for Smith.
There won't be any sidewalks going anywhere.
Gotcha.
But the entrance, just to be clear, the entrance to these 2 new homes will not be on Kimball at all.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. It's just...
The existing home is on Kimball, right, and there are no sidewalks on Kimball.
Right.
So it would be a sidewalk to
Yeah, no, I was looking on the map, and there are no sidewalks on Kimball. I don't know whether we want to note in here that they're going to maintain the sidewalks on Smith, because there are sidewalks currently on Smith. But I just want, we should change the verbiage there for the next week's meeting.
We will take care of it.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments from commissioners? Comments from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I am opposing. This is nothing to do with anything that the developer has done, but I'm just in opposition to this for other reasons.
So by vote of 2-1 with Commissioner Markman recusing, the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to CE2. This is Land Development, LD 1502, Molly Court Associates, LLC, 720 Rhodes Avenue. This is a motion to approve the subdivision and land development application of Molly Court Associates, LLC, applicant and owner of the property located at 720 Rhodes Avenue. The applicants seek approval to demolish the existing structures on the site and subdivide the property into 8 lots. A new road is proposed with access to Rhodes Avenue. The 8 proposed lots will range in size from 15,098 square feet to 18,292 square feet. The applicant proposes to construct a new single-family dwelling on each of the lots. The properties are zoned within the R2 residential district in Ward Number 3 of the Township of Abington, and the motion is subject to conditions and waivers as listed in the agenda, and I so move.
Second.
The applicant is here.
Been moved and seconded. Would the applicant like to make a comment about the application? And please state your name and address for the record.
Steve Kozlowski, 872 Jenkintown Road, Elkins Park. I'm principal in Molly Court Associates, the owners of 720 Rhodes Avenue. Proposing to demolish the existing home and barn that's on this 3.4-acre site and subdivide the property into 8 building lots. We have had a informal meeting with the neighbors, and there's concerns about the trees that are surrounding the property. You hope to have a meeting this Saturday with the neighbors that border the property and address their concerns with the landscaping and the trees. Commissioner Jones we're supposed to be setting this up for Saturday, I believe.
Please.
You want me to start?
I will
Also,
defer to my elders.
Commissioners, I just want to be known that we tried to have a meeting this past weekend, and we couldn't get it with the neighbors. We promised that we'd have another meeting. The applicant has promised to have that. We're going to have it this coming Saturday, as he indicated. We're also inviting the Historic Society there to look at the home and barn to see what could be salvaged from that, so we can preserve that, which is a good thing. And we'll discuss plantings and surface. Mr. Pennicow and I met with one of the neighbors the other day and addressed his concerns. So I don't see him in the audience, but we are going to speak with them again. So I just want to point that out, that we are continuing conversation with the neighbors.
So there was a lot of discussion about the possible historical aspect, but
I've spoken with Lucy Strackhouse concerning this, and she's been inside the house, and she knows that there's not that much to save, but still, at a benefit of the residents, when not, they've asked if they could see it, and we're going to do that. And the applicants agreed to show everybody.
There was also a request, Mayor?
Of course.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
There's also a request by a Ward 3 resident that potentially some type of historical marker be placed. It's uncertain as to whether or not that site would qualify for an actual historical marker, so I don't know if there's something that can just be placed there for our edification. Also, one of the concerns that will be looked at in trying to address any landscaping issues is because of some of the privacy concerns, because most of the surrounding houses are single-story houses, and the new homes will be two-story. We looked at the community meeting with residents. Residents had an opportunity to look and kind of get an estimation of the offsets, so how they would be impacted. This has also been run through traffic safety. There's a request that there be a stop sign on the new street, because there will also be a new street that will be brought in. There was discussions of making sure that there's going to be ample opportunities and places for snow removal, so that will be taken care of. So I'm looking forward to having the meeting with residents on Saturday. I think it's actually a godsend, because with the ice, the snow, and the weather, I would not feel comfortable for any residents, the developer, or any of the township staff to be walking in that area. And I'm hoping that we can have a good resolution where everybody can have their needs met moving forward.
For the record also, sir, this is by right plan. It's a conforming plan. It meets our zoning code.
Thank you, Director Matteo. Other Commissioner DePlacido.
Mr. Matteo, does the current plan have the sidewalk going all the way around the circle? Because one of the things I read, it said it was only along one side.
Yes, sir. I believe it's all the way around.
And it meets up with Rhodes Ave on both sides?
There's no sidewalk proposed.
Correct. So they're asking, Mark, what are they're asking for?
They asked for a waiver for the use on site.
Okay.
There was a list of waivers that were requested, Commissioner. One of them is the installation of sidewalks. The issue being is as the new road comes out through Rhodes Avenue, there is no sidewalk on that side of Rhodes.
Which side is that, Mr. Pankowski?
It would actually be, sir, if we're looking at it, if you come in from Old Huntington Pike, this development would be to your left.
We're Essex. It's the even side.
The even side, okay.
Also, Steve, you want to just explain a little bit, just so the commissioners, everybody can understand about the pavers that you're installing, if you would, but talking to the microphone.
We're proposing that part of the driveways, the lower portion of the driveways are going to be done in a EP Henry, it's called an eco paver. It's a pervious paving system. It's like a paving stone that's designed to collect the water that runs off the driveway into the system and store it in an underground seepage pit, essentially, underneath this paving system. So each of the 8 driveways would receive that.
Doesn't work.
In addition to the pervious paving, each building will have its own underground storage pit for the pervious surface that's going to be created by the roof
No, it just becomes a
and
pervious.
the garage, essentially the building footprint.
All right. I'm sorry, just getting back to the sidewalks. The Montgomery County Planning Commission did recommend the sidewalks, correct? I'll wait for Mark and Larry. I said that the Montgomery County Planning Commission did recommend the sidewalks be installed, correct?
Yes, but our planning commission approved it the way you see.
Okay.
So the issue being, if you can use the map, I'll be able to show you. The homes that you see here to the top of the plan, front on Essex. There's a home down here at the bottom that fronts on Old Huntington Pike. We could have the applicant install sidewalks along this run, but they would not travel the 150 feet needed to connect to Essex Avenue, nor would they travel the 200 and some odd linear feet down to Old Huntington Pike. So you'd have a sidewalk that basically just runs the width of this property, and it wouldn't connect to anything, sir.
Okay. But installing sidewalks on that side of its roads, you're going to have new people in the buildings, children, things like that, and they're going to require bus stops, just a safe way to walk outside of the circle or the cul-de-sac. And I tend to agree with the Planning Commission on this one, that something should be installed in and around there. The Montgomery County Planning Commission.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And just is it impossible to have a sidewalk within the cul-de-sac? Does that not make sense for that aren't people going to circulate in there, if not just a walk to maybe their neighbor's house or, the mailman?
If you were going to do sidewalk, I would imagine you wouldn't want to have it just inside the cul-de-sac. You would want it to run continuously across the fronts of each lot.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
On the road.
He wants it all the way down. The commissioner is asking for it to go all the way down.
Beyond our property lines.
No.
No. We prefer not to do it, obviously, and it was suggested that we didn't do it.
Steve?
Commissioner Klein.
I would concur with Commissioner DiPlacido. I think, you have sidewalks up on Essex. Will they ever connect? I don't know. But we're pretty darn close, and I think that if we have the opportunity to put sidewalks in, I think for some of the reasons that Commissioner DiPlacido talked about, but also in the hopes that somehow these connect and we create more of a walkable community, I think that should be our goal. If this whole neighborhood had no sidewalks anywhere, I would agree with the waiver of sidewalks, but I think we're so close that I think this development should have sidewalks on Rhodes Avenue and up and through the cul-de-sac. So I think we should honor the County Planning Commission's review letter. Thank you.
Just throw my 2 cents in. This is how you get sidewalks in areas like this. This is the opportunity. So I concur with Commissioner DiPlacido and Commissioner Klein.
Commissioner. So what I'm getting the general consensus is that the sidewalks completely around the entire property.
That's,
Okay?
Which means we would strike the waiver.
That is correct. I just want to make sure that
would it be appropriate, I mean, would the applicant withdraw the request for the waiver, or is that,
We just don't have to grant it.
I guess, I mean, is there
So
a difference?
all we're doing is we're saying the motion's been seconded, and basically, you just, with the caveat that the waiver for sidewalks will not be granted.
it's up to your problem.
Right, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I would be interested to hear how Commissioner Jones feels about it. This is the ward that you represent?
Yes. That is something that we haven't had any of the neighbors suggested that. I see it as a viable solution. My concern is when I look at other developments similarly in Ward 3, the first that comes to mind is I'm thinking of Charter Circle, and I'm also thinking of across from St. Michael's, Pondview. And I don't think that either of those does the same thing. And I know that those have children also. I do agree with the fact that we do need the walkability. I don't think that it's anything that is necessarily going to be a hardship for the community. I just wouldn't want to see it be a bridge to nowhere, so to speak, and we don't have any further plans of actually making that continuity, if that makes sense.
I understand that too, but it's new development, and it can be done now. And there is opportunity there to occur, where it may occur, where we may be able to bridge these gaps. So if we have a chance to do it now before anything, I'd rather do it now than later. It's easier to put one in new.
Yeah, I understand. My only concern would be that what is that, and maybe Mr. Pennecow, Mr. Mateo could speak to, where does that put us in terms of bridging that gap?
Well, I mean, it's up to the committee to ask for the waiver to be removed.
Right.
So then they'll have to put in the sidewalks. Now, if the applicant wishes to argue this, I mean...
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is to bridge the gap in terms of where their sidewalks stop and where we would try to get the additional walkability.
I don't know how we can force, I'm looking at Mike Powers to ask for his expertise, but I don't know how we can force the other two property owners who have nothing to do with this parcel to install sidewalks. So case in point, it'd be the one up here on block 60, unit 50, asking them to continue, and also this piece down here, which goes to Old Huntington Pike. Excuse my back.
But there are no sidewalks on Old Huntington.
There's no sidewalks.
We're only, I mean...
I know, you're already asking for here and here. You know, I can't force the other two neighbors to put in, nor can I ask them to, I don't think, install on other neighbors' property. Am I right, attorneys?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's asking to force them to put in.
We're not asking them to put the new sidewalks in.
I understand the purpose for potentially looking at having a bus stop. I think that's a purpose that can be served in similar ways as it's done right now in the other two developments that I had mentioned. I'm not opposed to the sidewalks being in. It's not anything that I think is going to hurt me nor the community. I think it may be a good thing for the community. My concern simply becomes that we put those sidewalks there and there is not that continuity. Now, I know that we've been having discussions and plans about making the community more walkable. Maybe this is the impetus and the start that will get something done, so I get that point. I just would hate to see something, you know, you're walking on a sidewalk and all of a sudden the sidewalk just falls off. And I think that's occurred. My other question would be, what was the motivation for the township to not want to require the sidewalks?
They are required under code.
From a staff review standpoint, Commissioner, I think I can address that. Normally when we look at these things, sir, we look at where the sidewalk is in relation to this. If the adjoining properties have sidewalk, then we don't normally support a waiver for sidewalk. If the adjoining properties do not, we recommend that we grant the waiver. The other thing that comes into play here is stormwater management end of it. Right now, you're going to have a portion of this right-of-way, approximately 6 foot, all the way around the entire bulb. That's going to be green area just to the property side of the curb. Once the waiver for sidewalk isn't granted, 4 foot of that 6 feet, approximately 6 feet, it might be 6.5, now becomes paved surface, and we have to account for the stormwater for that. So it's kind of twofold, sir.
So I guess, Etna, from an engineering point, I get the two. I don't see that there would be necessarily a traffic safety issue of not having the sidewalks. Again, I don't see the problem with it. I just don't see if the benefit outweighs what may also be the harm. And I think that from all I know, that we've had no safety issues in Charter Circle or Pondview. And additionally, when this went through traffic safety simply required that there be a stop sign there. So
Commissioner Klein.
I don't know, what is it, Chart Avenue, is that, or Chart, whatever it is?
Charter Circle.
Charter Circle, I don't know where that is, but Pondview, that doesn't have, that's not connected to any sidewalk system. Is there sidewalks out on Fox Chase?
There are no sidewalks on
Look, I would agree that if this was in the middle of nowhere with no sidewalks, there's neighborhoods where the sidewalks aren't even close. That's one thing, but, there is a possibility of a connection. How that actually happens, there's ways that it can happen. The property owner, the township, whatever it is, but you're 100, whatever it is, away from Essex, we should be putting the sidewalks in here. And the stormwater management, it has an effect, but, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's negligible and can be handled.
Commissioner Spiegelman.
Just sort of as a FYI, because I didn't see this in the notes, this current school district bus stop is at Old Huntington Pike and Rhodes.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. Anyone else? Comments from the audience?
Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane. I just wanted to know the time and place of your meeting on Saturday.
That meeting will be with residents. It'll be actually at the location, and specifically residents will be meeting with the developer, those residents who either share the property line, or there are also residents who actually are directly across from the property line, and they'll be going through specifically any concerns that they have with their property line issues and issues that were discussed at the community meeting.
Okay, not for the other residents that are within the notifying area?
No.
Okay.
I don't mind asking, I'm a resident and I'm not adjoining. Why not?
Well, when we had the community meeting, the discussion that centered around the property lines, the issues with the property lines were more specific to issues of privacy, issues of the vegetation and trees and landscaping that would take place with the new development. So at that meeting, it was discussed that various residents had concerns about, will you be able to see into my yard? Will I have to get a fence? How much property space will I have? And how will we be able to actually develop that type of buffer? So it was agreed, and the developer agreed to actually walk the property with each of those residents to take a look at what could be done to actually support additional plannings and things of that nature.
Sure, ma'am, but if you would, when the speaker's done, if you could approach the podium and...
Yeah, I also would agree that whatever happens at that property affects property values and other things in the neighborhood. So if you all agree to have no buffer or some big fence or something else, that affects everybody. And so, often their input is important. Along those lines, too, I know that the neighbors on, is it Winding Lane or Winding Way, or the little street that actually comes off Huntington Pike, but they often get runoff from up that hill, and I don't know if that runoff affects them. But were those neighbors down on Huntington Road, were they notified as well, or not? Do you know? Where the water is coming down, there's a stream right there at the end of the road.
You're talking about across Huntington Pike?
Yeah.
Those neighbors...
Across Huntington Road, right? Not Huntington Pike.
Old Huntington Pike.
Yeah, Old Huntington Pike.
Those neighbors were not notified. This notification was for the individuals in Ward 3, and then there were also additional residents who are in a different ward who actually are directly across the street from the property.
Okay, all right, because I think some of them probably would like to know what's happening, especially water-wise. It's good that, that they all have seepage tanks. The only other thing I wanted to ask was just about the trees. I did see a big chart there of trees X'd off. You couldn't actually read it, but is there a way to just generally summarize what they're going to be doing with the trees, or taking down about how many trees and what would be left?
I believe there's going to be 67%.
61% of the existing trees, 10 caliber inches or larger, are being retained. 39% of the trees, 10 caliber inches or larger, are proposed to be removed. There are also an additional 12 trees, 12 shade trees that are being added, and at the final count, there's also a number of evergreen trees being added to the site. The requirement for this is the applicant maintain at least 25% of the existing tree canopy, and that we do account for each of the trees 10 caliber inches or larger. The applicant has also put together what they would call a tree protection plan. That plan is here, and it lays out the site itself. This is not a tree preservation plan, it's strictly just a tree protection plan. It's a detail that during construction, where the soil erosion controls will be placed, where all the seepage beds will be located, and what we had this looked at by our Shade Tree Commission. Looked at this, Dr. Stevens looked at this for us to make sure that the disturbed area was not within the drip line of any of the trees proposed to remain. So you can see here, there's a line of evergreens that will be added, and then there's an additional 8 street trees that are being added around the perimeter of the proposed new street.
Thank you, Mr. Pinnacle. Very thorough.
Allow me just to say, too, because I had spoken up before about not appreciating having somebody come in to our properties and tell us what trees we do and don't want to have, and I stand firmly by that. I think that's absolutely wrong for residents to have somebody else decide what trees should be on their property. But for developers, I do believe when they're not going to live there especially, but also when you're building for other people, that it's important to keep that. So thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, did you want to say a word?
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Fury. I'm at 806 Rhodes Avenue. Staying with the tree issue, since we've just most recently spoken about the tree issue, I'm very concerned about the trees. I have other issues, but I'll start with the trees since we're on that topic. I've actually gone through the list. Someone at the Planning Commission actually gave me this, and I actually spent a lot of time today actually reading through the 11 sheets of the various plans that are here.
That's the landscaping plan you're referring to, ma'am?
Well, it was
tree plan.
Oh, the entire package. Okay. Thank you.
It's 11 sheets, and it was presented at the Planning Commission meeting last week.
Gotcha.
And I was fortunate enough to actually just be handed this. And I spent some time today going over actually each one of the 11 sheets. Some of my comments or questions tonight may be ignorant, but please humor me, I need some answers. So we'll start with the trees. And now the trees, I believe, I have to use a magnifying glass.
Let me just caution you, ma'am, that there's a 3-minute rule too, which I'm not going to rush you through it. But yes,
Are you serious?
I'm serious. We have a speaking rule just so we can keep the meeting flowing. Again, I'm not going to hold you strictly to it, but I just wanted you, if you could go through them, quickly so that we can get as many of your concerns.
The trees will take more than 3 minutes. But let me say one more thing. since you brought up 3 minutes. I'm here about transparency. What Ms. Lehman just said, and what Mr. Jones just said, and what was talked about before we got to the trees of some meeting that's scheduled for Saturday morning, no one even gave Ms. Lehman the time. I live at the corner of Rhodes and Essex. I am one set of houses from this eight-home development, and I cannot go to a meeting with the developer on Saturday morning.
I don't know if that was
I mean,
a restriction.
really. And as Ms. Lehman said, there's another set of neighbors down the road on Rhodes Avenue, on the other side of Old Huntington Pike, where there is a stream, by the way, who may have their own issues. What does it matter whether you're in Ward 3, Ward 2, or whatever is across the street on Old Huntington Pike, that they shouldn't be informed of what's going on in this township? You're putting 8 houses.
Wait, Miss, can I ask you what your concerns are? Because if you tell us your concerns, we can address them.
3 minutes?
Just tell us your concerns. We want to hear your concerns. You spent 3 minutes yelling at us, so just tell us your concerns.
Number one, I also agree with Ms. Lehman. You have to look at what trees are being taken down.
Okay.
I know there's an ash borer that's probably doing the work for us, but guess what? You have green ash trees on this property that, pursuant to their landscaper, are in good condition. Nonetheless, from what I've seen, there are X's that they're coming down, along with a lot of other specimen trees. I'm not talking about the white pines that fell over all over this neighborhood in last winter.
Do we have an ordinance that says we can't take down certain trees, or that developers can't take down certain trees?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Maybe we ought to be more concerned about those things. Okay, I have other issues. Number one, I did look at the plan, maybe sheet one. There's supposed to be a 40-foot setback on the front of the property. I could be wrong, maybe I'm reading the plan incorrectly, but it looks to me like on lot 6.
Is there a 40-foot setback, Larry?
No, it's 40 front.
I said, is there a 40-foot setback? If you could just say your questions, and we'll ask the staff to address them one by one.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
I'm specifically referring to lot number 6, which has a curved front. And I need to know, because on the graph that I have, I'm pulling at a plan, the 40-foot marking is in the center. In other words, where you would have the longest from the curb line to the front of the property. But on the edges, which would be presumably shorter because it's a curve, is that also 40 feet or it's not?
No, it's 40 foot all the way through.
Is it 40 feet all the way through?
All the way.
Okay.
Okay, because it doesn't show that on the plan.
On the little one, I guess maybe it's harder, but on this one, it does speak one.
Actually?
That's right here. You want to come up, I'll show you?
Please.
This is a sheet.
Right.
You lot 6.
Yes.
Okay, so 40 feet.
Yeah, I see that.
All the way across. I know. So there's the back.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's connected, thank you. You're welcome. I want to say something else about the historical value of the house, regardless of what's inside of it. The house was built in 1740. It's a 274-year-old structure along with and by the way, it's 3 stories, and it has a huge barn. Whether that's built at the same time as the main residence, I do not know. But we're talking about a 274-year-old structure built in 1740. So when everybody poo-poos historical value, somebody ought to really pay attention to it and decide whether or not, because, by the way, historical value is one of the criteria that all of you are supposed to be looking at when it comes to preservation and maintenance of historical buildings, historical sites. I know it's not certified, but does the township just blink, wink, and nod and not bother with these things? Okay, I'm bringing up my points. What you decide to do-
Let us address them. Is there an
Okay.
ordinance that prevents us from tearing, that we can prevent them from tearing down this house because of its age? Do we have an ordinance to that effect right now? Okay.
Okay.
So we can't legally prevent the applicant from tearing that down, ma'am?
What a shame. In any event, let me continue. There's, I think it's on sheet 10 of 11. Bear with me. I know I'm exceeding the 3-minute rule, but you know what? I don't know if anybody else is talking anyway, so just make me times however many people should have shown up. Page 10 of 11, I don't know if any of you have the plan, but on page 10 of 11, the way I understand it, I may be wrong, that in the preliminary phases of the construction, I'll put it that way, there is a bituminous driveway that's already existing on the site, that as I understand it from page 10 of 11, that driveway will be used for the construction vehicles to go in and out of the property. But then I see, as I read page 10 of 11, that, now let me get to 10 of 11. Bear with me here. Okay. Here's my magnifying glass. Okay. On page 10 of 11, where it actually, that page 10 of 11 is called erosion control. And it has construction access, and I'll quote, use existing bituminous drive for the RCE to the back areas for construction access until Molly Court binder course is built, period. To minimize area of disturbance, after the RCE is moved, mill the bituminous material and deposit it in an embankment area. Well, I don't know what the plan would show in terms of the length of this driveway and how much bituminous material we're talking about. What embankment? Where? What are the contaminants or the elements of this bituminous driveway? Is it a pollution concern? And where is it going on the property, by the way? Embankment area, where is that? And by the way, milled bituminous material is not considered clean fill. It's here, I think, on column 2 of, that could be page 11 of 11, plus it's in the subdivision plan. You're not allowed to use milled bituminous material. Again,
Can I ask staff to address your concern? Or the developer, I don't know who's, yeah.
So typically, our construction entrance will be built where the new road is going. We carved that road, put in a stone tire cleaner made of 3 to 4 inch ballast. That would typically be our construction entrance, so when trucks are entering or leaving the site, that they don't track mud into the street. In terms of the millings coming off of the existing driveway, our engineer must have made use of those millings in an embankment area. I'm not exactly sure where that is. Typically, we would use millings on a site for a base course for driveways or possibly even the road itself, if it met township standards. So we would try to recycle those millings and use them in the site. That's underneath some other paving.
Is that something we can look at to make sure it's going to be okay and it's not some? So, but that's something we can look at to make sure that it's not something that'll contaminate anything. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Any other comments? Or?
Well, not only that, where is it going?
Well, we'll obviously look at that.
Well, if I may ask the question, when do residents, I'm sorry, I should be up here. I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else. Mm-hmm. But as a resident, when do I find out, to my satisfaction, that in fact, whatever this developer is doing with excavating, they can't leave the driveway there. I mean, it's a long driveway. They cannot leave it there. And the way I saw it in their plan is they're going to excavate it, mill it, and put it in some embankment.
I'll tell you what, before the next meeting, we'll get some answers from staff on that, and we'll make sure that we can clarify that back.
Well, when you say you'll get some answers, when will I get the answer?
You know what, if you're willing to give your name and number.
We will get her, answer her questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will, okay. Also, I just want everybody to know, the engineer could not be here this evening, so I apologize, and the applicants, the other applicant, his partner, couldn't make it tonight either. So we couldn't have the engineer here to answer those questions.
We'll make sure Larry has your information.
We will get that information to the young lady.
Yep.
I suspect you may have other questions too, ma'am, to direct to these gentlemen that may, just be better where they can look at a plan and get an answer, not in the...
Commissioner Sanchez, I'll work with the township staff to make sure those answers are received also, and then I have a statement to make after the speakers concluded.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
I know I've exceeded the 3-minute rule, please excuse me, but I still don't think I have an answer to the Saturday meeting. When is it, and are we all invited, or is this an exclusionary process?
So, may I?
Yes, I'm glad.
Saturday meeting has actually been coordinated as late as today, again, because of weather and other things. There is a mailing distribution list. And let me go through, this is what I was going to say. The previous meeting, as you may recall, going back to a couple weeks ago, the really cold, I can remember it distinctly because it was pretty cold. We delivered the mailing list, and I hand-delivered specifically to your house and others the invitation to the meeting. We delivered to the surrounding mailing list, also printed out additional copies and extended the delivery to some of the other houses going up Norfolk and other places. The reason why this meeting was initially, the subsequent meeting was initially called for those individuals specific to the property line was not to take down any additional trees, was not to look at having huge fences brought up, as was mentioned by a previous speaker. It was because there were specific questions that were asked about, if my house butts to this property, what will the vegetation look like? So again, anybody who is in that area, I will stop by, and I know that there will be a mailing, Mr. Pennecow, but I'll stop by and hand deliver again to your house as well. Additionally, I sent a copy out to everyone on my email blast for those residents, not just in that area, but my blast is to all of Ward 3. So I want to be specific that the community meeting was initially set up so that anybody who has any overarching concerns, specific to the ones that you've raised this evening, could have those concerns answered not only by the township, but by the developer directly. The meeting that is coming up on Saturday is a byproduct or end result of that is much more specific to those property line issues and answers. However, the issues that you raised this evening, I thank you for those issues, and as we've said, township staff and I will work with you to make sure that you get those answers, and would like to actually take some of those issues other people may be interested in as well, and we'll send them out through the email blast as well. But if you want to be there, I'll talk to you afterwards, and others will be able to come. But this is not open to the entire township or even the entire ward because it is so specific.
I just don't understand why it should be restrictive. I don't understand why.
Well, I can tell you I attended the meeting. We had a meeting with the developer at the McKinley Firehouse, which everybody was invited to voice their concerns. We felt we were able to address the concerns of everybody there, and it was my suggestion, because the only concern that wasn't readily addressed was the perimeter, the houses that live directly behind all these properties had some concerns. So what we said was, if that's your concern, the developer will walk it with you, you'll look at the vegetation and see if there's a way potentially to supplement the vegetation between their actual physical property and the property being developed. So we had a meeting for everybody's concern. This is a follow-up for the people that abut the property to make sure that they're happy with the vegetation between the two. So it really isn't relevant to anybody else because it's a property line that's shared between the people that come to the meeting and this property. It's not a property line between anybody else. So that's what that meeting is about, is to address those concerns of those people. Now, if you're concerned about someone's backyard and what they see on this property, it's not going to be near a street, it's not going to be near anything you see. It's between two private property owners' houses in the future. And the developer was nice enough to say, okay, I will look at the property line between your house and my property, and I will look at potentially putting in additional landscaping to make you happier. And that's what that's all about. And it was really just the developer being willing to do this, and it's not something that is a general concern. There was a general meeting we had at the McKinley Firehouse where everybody could voice whatever concerns they had.
Commissioner Markman, I think it's also fair to say that at that meeting there was significant time spent on the specific trees. There were some residents that brought up some issues of some of the trees that were there. They had concerns because some of the trees were in poor conditions. So the trees were discussed. There were a number of other issues discussed. But again, any specific concerns that you would have, I'll talk to you after, and township staff will be here to work with you and any resident. we're not trying to hide anything. Being transparent and everybody having their questions answered beforehand actually makes any process a lot easier than having to deal with conflict after a project already gets started or after anything is finished. So I hear what you're saying, and I actually think it makes a lot of sense, but I don't want you to think that this was done in any type of secrecy. There was a number of opportunities, and people were letting to be known about this meeting.
Let me just say that there was one residents' meeting that at 806 Rhodes Avenue at any rate, and thank you for dropping off that notice of that meeting that Sunday prior to your meeting was the night of February 19th. Let me just say that I have to work for a living and to earn my own money, and I am self-employed. And oh, by the way, on the night of February 19th, I had a deadline that could not be in any way, shape, or form rescheduled. I apologize for my inability to be at the residents' meeting, which I did not even know about until 3 days before that. But in any event, I don't see any reason why any resident should be criticized for not being able to appear at that meeting.
We're not criticizing you. We're just saying that, so now you have concerns, tell us what they are, and that staff will address them. I mean, that's okay you weren't there. It's fine. This particular walkthrough of the properties is basically just two private properties abutting each other and what happens in between. If you have concerns right now, staff will address them before the commissioners vote. So get your concerns to staff and let them address them. And if you're not happy with how they're addressing them, come to the commissioners' meeting and say, I'm not happy how this is being addressed, and tell us. So, I mean, it's a process. That's what this is. It's a process. So just tell us what your concerns are, and we'll try to address them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, Director Sanchez, I'm unclear. Do I need to introduce a motion to remove the variance or
The waiver.
the waiver?
Strike the waiver for the...
Strike the waiver? All right, so motion to strike the waiver for the sidewalks.
Second. All those in favor of the motion to strike the waiver for the sidewalks?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So now, let's vote on the amended motion with the waiver stricken. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Any general comments from anyone on the audience on code enforcement matters?
Okay, so your patience was noted, and there are many, many residents that need that kind of patience, as you can see, coming in and figuring out what you wanted to say in 3 minutes is supposed to happen that way. It took me forever to do that, and I still don't do it well, as you know. So it really wasn't that painful to be patient. Your patience is something that other residents see, and that should be something that should be admired. The things that I wanted to bring up tonight largely involve, again, the colonnade, the code enforcement that in 700,000 ways was completely inadequate, unaddressed, and in every way went wanting to the great detriment, financial loss, and quality of life loss of magnitude for the residents of this township. Why I cannot seem to get an answer, other than that I really did not get an answer at all as to why the codes were not enforced to the point that we have the ability to fine such a landlord $1,000 a day for each violation. And had we done so, I don't think those violations would have existed for years and years and years as they did. But we didn't. And I couldn't get an answer as to why we didn't. I finally, in requisitioning thousands of papers, found a paper from the fire marshal, which you have heard me say, said that all of the violations had been almost immediately fixed. He didn't say almost immediately. I don't remember what the wording was. But in other words, they had been fixed right away, which, as you know, is not true. I've told you there is evidence that's not true, and yet you are sitting there still completely unengaged and unengageable on an issue of this magnitude, which is the tools that we have to prevent that kind of an absolute abhorrent situation for residents of this township. And both the president of the board, Mr. Sanchez, the residents commissioner, and the manager refused to go over with me and even look at those violations. I have pictures of them. Nobody even wants to see them. Not one of you has asked me, show me the pictures. Two commissioners here, one of whom recently complained about the tone and tenor of the meeting, promised me that they would find out if there were any fines and citations. And they did not. They did not get back to me at all. They simply did not get back to me. And I have a phone number, too. I mean, I have an email. I have an address they could write to.
Your time's
and
expired,
they
Ms.
could
Lehman.
answer me here.
Could you
Okay.
wind it down here?
Yes, I'll finish it really quickly then. The engineer was not brought in on a garage deck that looked like it was about to collapse and had stalactites coming from it. The MOU document that has not resurfaced apparently was a clear admission that 100% of that property was being worked on. And if it were being worked on, then the guidelines were quite different. And I think a lot of shenanigans are going on to change the guidelines as to what should be sprinklered, what shouldn't, and what level of work should be done there. I can't get answers to those things. I would like to. I would like to get them civilly behind the scenes. I would like not to have the tenor and the tone that we have. But I'm willing to continue it until we change what's happening in this township. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.